Coming to you live from the palatial studios of PBJ Productions. Welcome to Patrick and BJ Talk Real Estate, where we talk about life, the universe, and everything as it relates to real estate. Hey everybody, we're back. It's BJ.
And Patrick.
And we're here talking about all things real estate. We've talked about some different things, and as we're going into the new year, and as we said, there's great things ahead for us as a channel and things we're going to talk about. But getting back to some real estate questions that we get, and maybe more specifically one that we were just talking about when parents come and they say they ask the question, how will my son, daughter, child purchase a home? How will they afford a home?
Yeah, well, exactly. People ask me that, and I always look at their kids and like, oh, that's probably they're probably 3 years or 2 years away, or even more, 10 years away from their kids even being able to get a mortgage. Right. So I thought, like, wow, there's so much that can happen in the next 3 years or 10 years that could change your life, and it might not mean owning or buying a house in Victoria, right?
Sure.
So I would go back, and my thought process is don't worry about it first.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you don't know what kind of opportunities might come up or arise, or your ability perhaps to help with a part of a down payment,
right,
or whatever the case may
sure.
be, right?
Yeah.
But I've seen so many people. I'm going to talk about my wife's high school friends.
Yep.
They go away to college. They go away to university, overseas. Most of them didn't come back. They found jobs elsewhere, and they bought elsewhere.
Sure.
Or they might be renting. I don't really know. I don't keep tabs with, what they're doing or how they're doing it.
Sure.
But even locally, I just think there's tons of possibilities. What do you tell your clients when they say that to you?
Well, I think that there's always a solution.
Yeah.
Right. If we'll dig for it, look for it, work for it, there's always a solution of some kind. And for some, it also depends on, like you said, career.
Yeah. What
they're going to do, where they're going to do it. It was interesting. It's a funny story. I remember one client years and years ago. She was moving back to Victoria with her, younger son. Let's say he's probably at that time maybe 5, 6, 7 years old, about to start grade school, somewhere in there. And she jokingly said, we were talking about her moving back and all these things, and she jokingly said, well, she said, this is kind of what we do if we're born in Victoria. She said, we're kind of like salmon. We come back to spawn. So we had a good laugh about that. But yeah, essentially, nice. She was saying, I've done my career this way so that I can come back and raise my son here in Victoria, and going to the schools I want him to go to in the neighborhood and so forth that we want to be in. But they planned that, I guess, is the point. That her career took her in another route, but she eventually, planned to come back.
Right, because some people do come back to spawn.
Right.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
it's a desirable place to live.
Sure.
And yeah, maybe let's say it's your kids and they move away for 10 years or 15 years. You know what the other thing is? Like, how many times do you see, personally, not just clients, the grandparents will follow their kids to wherever they live.
Right.
Maybe not right away.
Right.
Maybe after a few years.
Yeah.
They want to be closer to the family. They want to be able to support.
Yeah.
And either they move to Victoria or they follow them somewhere else. If it's Edmonton or Ontario somewhere, or wherever the case, or in the U.S., right?
Sure.
So I've seen that over and over again where, I find that a lot of parents will end up following their kids once they have grandkids. But it might not be here, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd be curious to find out how many parents have kids here. They grow up and they buy and stay here. Like, I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's the case, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I would be interested in to see like how many born in Victoria kids turn into homeowners here.
Sure. And I think the other part of it is, as as beautiful as Victoria is and as wonderful as a place to live, depends what you do as a career, whether you're going to stay here or not also.
Sure, because there's certain industries that don't happen here on the island or
Sure.
Victoria.
Yeah,
Let's
sure.
say.
Yeah. And so maybe you're going to end up going to a different city, different province, whatever the case might be. I think
Wherever the opportunities are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're going to make some decisions about, does it make sense to move? I made a decision that it made sense to move to Victoria, even though my family is not here.
Yeah.
Right? So we go and visit them, but they're not here. They're in the Great White North in Alberta.
Right. So you don't have that close family support.
But what happens is you build this great group of friends, and they for us it's friends, it's church, it's all of those people that basically think about it this way. I have a friend that him and his wife are aunt and uncle to my daughter, and really he's like her natural uncle, but I've known him since I was 12 years old, regardless of where we live.
Yeah.
Right.
So he's just included as the uncle.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
It's probably just by happenstance that like my wife's parents, the in-laws, are in here, in Victoria.
Right.
So I think it's been a huge blessing to us, a huge bonus in family support.
Yeah.
Then, and I never thought about that when I met my wife and we went back to Ontario, and a couple more winters to remind us what winter's like over there. And then come visit here in the,
Right.
at Christmas time, and and maybe there's some snow, but it's hardly anything.
Yeah.
Like we had snow a couple weeks ago, and now it's all clear. Like
It was gone in 3 or 4 days, right?
3 or 4 days, and there's no trace of snow again.
Right.
And I'm
After
sure we'll
it
have
stopped
more.
snowing, yeah.
Yeah, after it stops snowing, I'm sure we'll have maybe more in February. But this is a nice place to live.
Yeah.
But looking back at it, if I was gonna give advice to any one of my kids in this way, not saying you have to stay close to the parents, but having parents or in-laws, somebody nearby, is a huge support for raising our kids. Like,
Sure.
I don't know what we would do, but yeah, you'd find friends, you'd find neighbors. That's not completely true, right? Church friends, other parents have completely stepped up. We've helped them out in need, and they've helped us
Sure.
out in need.
Yeah, we become a
So-
community then, right?
We're a community at that
Yeah.
point, right?
And I think I think the one thing to all of that too is it's about putting down roots, right?
Right.
And
That's the investment that you make.
sure.
You engage yourself in the community.
Yeah.
And that's where your
Right.
roots are.
Yeah. So getting back to where we started, the question
so we got
was
carried away on something
the question
else.
was what can we say to our kids? I think you mentioned it, and it was right on. Is just start with some basic things right now. Open a bank account. Start to when you can, get a credit card, and then use it every month and pay it off every month. So you start establishing credit.
Yeah. Maybe that's a phone bill. Maybe that whatever. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But start a savings habit.
Yeah.
Whatever that process might be. But there's a law that says an object in motion tends to stay in motion, and an object at rest tends to stay at rest unless acted on by a greater force. So if we start the motion now, then it gets easier and easier for them to continue that process of the savings habit, of the better savings habit, of the investment habits, whatever those cases are and whatever those things are.
Right. Start ticking off all the boxes that you need to be able to qualify or
Right.
just be able to purchase a home
Right.
in the future.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I liked how we talked about in our last episode about that belief system.
Right.
Don't put a limiting belief on that. Oh, it's unaffordable. It's
Right.
too expensive. As much as the news might talk about it,
Sure.
but plant that in your kids that once you start working and once you start savings and having a good credit, what are the possibilities?
Sure.
And then it's like, okay, well, maybe this income is required. Well, what would you need to do to start gaining that income to qualify for
Sure.
this purchase or whatever
Sure.
it might be, right?
Yeah. And this is for a different day entirely. But really, the question is, How can I raise my level of value and service to qualify for this much income?
Right.
Right.
To get whatever the reward might be.
Right. How can I raise my expertise? How can I raise my value? And how can I raise my level of service?
Yeah.
To qualify for that, whatever that number is, or whatever that home is. So.
Yeah, well, I hope everybody watching, I hope this is an encouraging word for everyone. And if there's any steps that maybe you can put in the comments, what did you have to go through to buy your first home? We'd like to hear that. Maybe we'll reach out to us, even if it's a private message, and maybe we'll get you on the podcast, and you guys can share your story on what did it take to get you to that part where let's say you bought your first house. We'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us. We've had a great time again, and if you haven't, please subscribe, like the video. It helps us with getting the word out there. And if you think anybody else would appreciate what we're talking about, please send a link to them or have them look us up on YouTube or on the podcast. And we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next video.
See ya.